Greetings, dear viewers. Welcome to Diaspora Point. This is your host, Auma Bella. Today, we want to talk about Captain Traore's trip to Russia. What kind of trip was it? How successful was it? Was it merely this parade of the 80th anniversary of victory in World War II? I think it was way more than that. And for that, we have our wonderful political analyst, Miss Grace Gibril, to help us go through this, to help us analyze and drill down into Traore's visit to Russia. What are the significances? What did it mean? What are the symbolisms? Grace, karibu. Grace Ajode Gibril, please walk us through this.
Thank you so much for having me again. I just wanted to point out that one of the wonderful things about the visit is that while everyone is, I think, playing chess when it comes to Africa issues, uh, Ibrahim and I guess Putin, in terms of their partnership, they're playing chess. And I'm not saying that lightly. It is truly interesting just to see how the Russians are pivoting and maximizing not only on the public relations that is representative of Traore, but they're also taking immediate advantage of the fact that Traore and what Burkina Faso offers them. So the visit was started by Putin offering what they call the quote unquote doomsday plane, which is his equivalent of Air Force One. Its name is Apocalypse. That's the plane that his presidential plane essentially. The unique piece about it that makes it incredibly rare is that these are fleets of planes that only Putin uses. Another thing was because of the comments from Zelensky in Ukraine saying he could not guarantee the safety of those who attended the 80th anniversary of Remembrance Day or Victory Day for Russia. It was important that Russia shut off their airspace. So that meant that every plane coming in would come in individually. They wouldn't all land in one place and then there was going to be like noise. So what that gave for Ibrahim Traore was an opportunity to have the world stage by himself,
Yep.
to have that spotlight. As you recall, the plane arrives. He steps off with his classic two guys. One of the things I just want to point out is there's a gentleman who carries a bag or an attaché. Then there's another gentleman, and then there's the gentleman they refer to as Gaddafi. And I don't know if he was in this. I think I saw him, but he tends to wear African beads, and they say that's his spiritual advisor. So what I'm just saying is, Traore is very aware. He's looking not just at what he's seeing, but he's looking at what other people are seeing. So he has 100% locked down his PR effect and is using it. In the meantime, Russia and Putin is also utilizing this opportunity to essentially annoy the West. Annoy the West completely.
Yes, he's taking it to them.
He's annoyed the West. Yeah, and he's annoying them by inviting Traore, obviously, which is a hot topic that's gotten the entire Black planet upset. He's annoying them by bringing Fidel Castro's brother. He's annoying them, bringing all these Eastern Bloc countries that no one, quote unquote, likes. And then there were two NATO Eastern European countries that showed up as a result of Zelensky's statement. So the whole entry point was filled with pomp and circumstance, but subtle. It was a subtle statement. Even the introduction of Traore as one of the second or the third dignitary, and he came after Maduro was introduced to Putin and shook Putin's hand and stood on the step and repeat and took pictures. The visit itself was significant in so much as it was offering an opportunity for the world to see Traore in a different light, and also the world to see him with powerful friends. And he knew this, you know. And one of the things that was incredibly amazing was, yes, there was the arrival, but then even more significant and more unique was the fact that when the plane went to Burkina Faso to pick him, it was escorted by jet fighters, which are Soyuz, very advanced Soyuz rockets, which are stealth fighters. The jet fighter, which is the Apocalypse, As I mentioned, it's the Russia's what they call the Doomsday Plane, or as Americans put it, Air Force One. It was accompanied when it went to get Burkina Faso, and it when returned into Burkina Faso. Uh, it was escorted by 6 jet fighters. It was just a very powerful symbol.
Yes, show of
But
force.
besides that, a huge show of force. But what it is when you see a plane, if I'm watching Burkina Faso and I see a Russian plane arriving, there's an assumption that Putin and it's the apocalypse, which is Putin's primary quote unquote Air Force One plane. If I'm intelligence, I'm gonna be afraid to do anything to that plane because what if it has Putin in the plane or Medvedev, the close allies of Putin? And if I take down that Russian plane, number one, I've taken down a Russian plane. I've probably killed a dignitary, and I've started an international incident that must be retaliated and responded to. So, for the Americans, being smart folks who've been in the business of war and business of diplomacy and otherwise, it was just better just to let this whole week ride and just not bother Traore and question
Frankly, I don't
exit.
think there was much they could have done, because I'm thinking with Traore on his way going or back, at each point he was escorted by fighter planes, which means the sky around him was frozen, was completely his. And I don't think the West had anything to do, because they didn't even anticipate that. It was a total surprise, and they could not have scrambled to try to do the wrong thing, to your point. And I think Putin did a very, very wise thing, because he became a complete contrast with the West. The West are trying to kill this man. They're trying to topple him. They're trying to kidnap him. Putin is courting him. He is giving him VIP, super VIP treatment. Now, it goes without saying, who would you rather do business with? That's an answer the audience will answer.
And that is fundamentally the saddest part, as I mentioned in the last couple of shows. It's very hard to understand why the option of inhumanity or the dehumanizing factors are the priority. What should have been, which the United States is supposed to be good at, is dialing in deeply on diplomacy. My thinking is if the Biden administration had been in place during this period of time, they probably, after one or two failures and some of the aggressive toppling, because they've been trying to topple him since 2022, they probably by now would have taken a diplomatic route, probably sent General Langley. You have to remember Traore is a military man, and if you hear his interviews and what he says about Langley, one of the things he says, you can clearly tell he respects Langley, and he's completely shocked and upset that Langley, with the honor he has, would actually promote an untruth. But as we said in the session last time, Langley's priorities and his allegiances are to the United States and its interests. So we can call Langley a liar all day long, but at the end of the day, he's a soldier and he's following orders. And I think Traore understands it, but Traore is jumping on the factors of he's a black man. How is he able to sleep at night? Those kinds of things.
Yes, but to your point, what Langley did not serve America. If he thought wisely, he was undoing his own country. He was lying to Congress. That's a crime in the United States. He was doing all the wrong things. I don't think he had the space to think. And of course, Traore is deeply disappointed, to your point, saying that this is a general of a very powerful army. I mean, a very powerful military. How can he do that? That broke his heart, number one. And then what even broke his heart some more is he's a black man.
Yeah.
Why do black people get used like this? In movies, in everything, the black person is the villain. And here is a general of a very powerful military. And here he is lying. He is being a villain here. But yes, indeed. Go ahead.
I love this is so great because we're moving in and out of the advanced part of the discussion, which is great because it's relevant to this beginning. One thing that everyone saw was Traore is a soldier through and through. he understands and respects the American military because he complimented them. He said, "This is a great army. How can someone of this caliber be okay with it?" But remember what we also said in the last session. It was clear that there was some discussion that General Langley was to state and specifically say Ibrahim Traore in that session. And if you watch the entire congressional hearing, you can see that Langley started by simply doing his normal brief. But the congressman kept asking questions that were leading and leading to a point where the congressman had to put his head on his shoulder and really now tee it off even more because Langley was so busy just it looked like it was being very honest and frank and by answering. But then you can tell because then you can see that he goes, "Oh, the gold. That's really where I really felt sad for Langley because I was like, oh, they've pulled you in and they reeled you in and, they've teed it off to you and you've caught it. And now, and I don't think he realized that we watch. I don't think he realized, well, here's what's making General Langley. It's very sad, by the way. The coup in Guinea, the military general, as we discussed offline, the military general in Guinea was a subject matter of last year, the year before his congressional hearing on African affairs, or AFRICOM hearing or briefing. And one of the Senator Matt Gaetz, pulled up a massive, you can find it online, pulled up a massive photo of General Langley, this coup leader in Guinea, and another military woman standing in a photo very proudly at AFRICOM headquarters. Oh. What people don't know is, number one, AFRICOM is in Ghana. That's number one, based in Ghana. Number two, people don't realize that French and other NATO forces are housed in AFRICOM. So yes, it's an American base, but it's a partnership and a coalition base. So when we talk about France training their troops, they're training the troops in conjunction with U.S. military tactics and processes and things like that. So when you graduate from so the congressman, just to go back, sorry, the congressman asked, do you know this guy? General Langley says, yes, he's one of our graduates. He says, what do you teach? He says, we teach an ethos of integrity and very, very proper speech. And then the congressman says, well, do we teach these guys to take over countries illegally? He said, I'm sorry, sir. He says, this gentleman just took over Guinea not too long ago. And we have 3 other people who have graduated from AFRICOM and the program that you guys are running that have later gone on to conduct coups. So are we in the business of making coups and toppling governments in Africa? So it's something that's going viral. Because no one understands. And then what the young people are doing, they're looking up in the system to find out if any of this AES generals or military guys were trained by the Americans or French or AFRICOM in general. None of them are. That is the common denominator. The 3 gentlemen in the AES are the only juntas in that region, including the presidents who've taken over and stayed too long, are the only ones absent the influence and training of the Americans. Therefore, you could not activate them because they were never in your program.
And they didn't study abroad. They didn't go for education abroad. They are not, to your point, they cannot be activated because they were not, they were not part of that system.
Yeah, and it really is sad because a system like that, and when you talk about what we've been taught democracy is, because everyone is not questioning democracy. They see democracy comes with war. Then they're looking at China and Russia. They're seeing with Russia, there's a sense of pride and, military might. That's kind of what's always been. But then they're looking at China and development and they're saying, wait, in China, you mean my apartment is paid for? I just have to pay taxes once and that's it forever? You mean in China, food is less expensive than America? You mean in China, you can maintain your lifestyle with one job? And that's supposed to be the communism that we don't want. What's going on? Why is my life so horrible? Why am I working 5, 6 jobs? So those are the questions that everyone is asking. And it all comes to Traore, who is fighting for his people to live and to just be left alone, to grow their own food and feed themselves and just be human beings.
And to that point you're making, during Traore's interview with Sputnik, news agency of Russia, he was saying that, the imperialists tell us that he heard somebody say something that shocked him, that, oh, North Korea, people don't have food, people. And he said, have you been to North Korea? He was not asking the reporter, but he was narrating a scenario where someone was bad-mouthing North Korea. And he said, have you been in North Korea? Have you seen how they live? They have all this nuclear power and all these things that they have. How can they be going hungry and all the stuff that you're saying? A very pertinent question, because we have been given the boogeyman, and the boogeyman is the communist. And that is why we have branded communist China as nothing but a dictatorial country. But within that dictatorial, quote unquote, they have, to your point, free apartments almost, next to free. They have good food, they live well, they have catapulted in development in great strides. I am not here to advocate for communism, but I'm indeed saying we all question democracy at this point.
Yeah, really, all the wars that America has gone to, the communist regimes that stated that we were fighting communism, communist regimes have remained in place, and we've left. So it's Vietnam, Cambodia, Russia, and it's different states. So it's a question that needs to be asked. I think at the end of the day, this is really about business, and businesses have dictated what we read, what we see. The Rockefellers and the Carnegies pretty much built the American education system, and it was based on ensuring that after high school, vocational skills training was given to young people, and they were pushed right into the 9-to-5 job environment. Ford needed his motor cars to be built, and that was one of the first few periods of human history when the 8-hour schedule was created. So we are in the matrix. Let's not pretend.
Yes,
we've been placed in the matrix. Those of you who watch the Matrix, Traore is essentially Neo, and those guys are trying to get him, and he I forget the name of Lawrence Fishburne is essentially Putin in this movie, moving him from place to place and place to place, providing him an avoidance strategy to not be destroyed or erased because of the symbolism he holds and how he may potentially destroy the Matrix. There is an upheaval of thought. Young Africans who questioned why things were. We all questioned why things were when we were growing up in Africa, but then we got used to it, and then we adulted. But adulting is hard. But a lot of people who are adults now, like myself, are seeing that the little kid in us that had that hope of a great Africa, of our own capacity to do everything we can do to make Africa great, we see a light at the end of the tunnel, although the tunnel is curved. You just have to maintain your North Star as young people and in our thinking and our support of these great folks who are coming up, and just keep moving and touching the wall with this curved cave. And before you know it, light will emerge. So however long the night, I always say, dawn will break.
Amen. If I may say so. Yeah. So.
Yes. Another thing I wanted to mention.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
What's another thing I just want to mention, the first trip that Ibrahim had to Burkina Faso was actually very significant. Again, back to Putin and his chess games, right? He took Ibrahim to the archives within Russia and Moscow, showed him the photos of World War I so that he understood what Russia's role was to the Burkinabe. He was shown the photos and records of Burkinabe fighting along with Russian troops. Remember, Russia lost about 6 to 8 million. Long before from 1940, I believe, to 1944, Russia lost a massive amount of people in the war. So he was able to walk Ibrahim through what Russia and Burkina were part of. And then he jumped timelines to when Burkina was seeking independence in the 1960s and the support that the Russians gave to many, many African countries. And of course, that was during the Cold War. And of course, we saw about 25 of our leaders being summarily murdered and killed because of the claim that they were turning communist. But it was really a war of resources, because all of those 25 leaders in these African independent countries saw that they needed to control their own resources. So that was the baseline by which Ibrahim's speech in the first session, after the first Africa session, his first visit, was so powerful because it was based on the history that he discovered and also knew, I guess, that Russia had.
Absolutely. And both Captain Traore and President Putin both made that link. The link that Russia contributed greatly to the victory against the Nazis. The Africans contributed greatly to the victory against the Nazis. And these are the two factions of people who have been left out in the celebration of victory of World War II. In the history of, the Western history of World War II, you don't hear about the Africans who are in the forefront. In fact, the Africans who were taken to fight were put in the forefront, and they were, as Traore said, they were the cannon fodder, because when the cannon is shot from the other end, they were the ones who were mowed down first. So they contributed, body and limb, everything that was in that fight, World War II, Africans contributed greatly. And then Putin lost close to 1 million. Russia lost close to 700,000, something like that. Russians who died.
It was actually 6 million. 6 million Russians died.
Oh, sorry, I'm even reducing the number. So 6 million Russians died in World War II. And that is, you hardly hear about that when their World War II pomp and circumstance in the West. You don't hear that. You don't hear about the Africans who died in that war. And that was a linkage that Traore provided and put during his speech. As you said, he must have already seen those photos and the historical background, and Putin emphasized all the time about that, all throughout that period, that Africans were also lost their lives, but they were forgotten.
Traore made a huge point that just shocked me, really, quite frankly, in the RT and, as you said, Sputnik interviews, the world broadcast by different agencies. But he stated that, look at the archives quote. They used black soldiers and placed them in front of the nuclear weapons when they were testing the atom bomb.
Wow.
To see the effect on the bodies of human beings. These are the French.
Yeah.
So again, back to the original, not original, but back to our countless and repeated points we've both been making. The French have a philosophy culturally that blacks are not human beings. They just, especially the elite.
And indeed, to that point, Macron said it recently. It's not even 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks this month.
No. It was 2 months ago when the French troops were thrown out of Burkina Faso. He says that they will come back begging because this kind of behavior is only known of animals, not human beings.
You see?
So Traore immediately said, did you hear what he said? He doesn't even think we're human. But more 2 weeks, what you're referring to probably 2 weeks ago, was the former finance minister of France was angry and said, Putin has to go, quote, to preface, because of him, we're going to lose our colonies. 2 weeks ago, France is going to lose its colonies, and our great children and grandchildren will be going to Africa to beg for aid. So you see, this kind of speaks to what has been the agenda from the 1880s when they carved up Africa, the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even now, why there's this open communication. Because this finance minister is thinking that he's talking to an audience that understands his thinking and thinks like him. He's so baked into his racism and demonic mental state as a normal that he actually thinks what he's saying is okay. Number one, as far as you guys have done in terms of your own propaganda, last time I checked, France was supposed to have granted freedom, or whatever you call it, decolonized or left Africa. But now you're confirming that, in fact, those agreements that you forced us to sign in the Francophone countries, and that what you're doing with the CFA is actually deliberate to maintain your colonies.
Indeed.
So in your back rooms, you're discussing your colonies and how much the colonies are giving you, how much gold they're giving you.
Indeed.
This is insane.
These are parasites who are sucking off of the African veins. That's what keeps them alive. But instead of humbling themselves, maybe with time, knowing that they should negotiate something that is tenable, they go ahead and feel that they're superior, even when they're the dependents, the complete dependence of Africans in everything. In everything. I'm sorry, but in everything. Just search what you can search. In everything. We are their food, we are their money, we are their everything. We are their everything. And here they are thinking that if they keep sitting on us, as Swahilis would say, kukalia, they keep sitting on us, they think we will never get up. But sorry for them. The giant is waking up. Africa is waking up. And he's right. He's right that Macron is an imbecile. Because Macron is not transforming with times. They should all read the signs of the times. To your point.
Yeah, Macron's whole background has become a mystery as it's now coming out. His closeness to the Rothschilds and how he just happened to jump from working for the Rothschild to vice president or something. So he's got an interesting background that's just a huge scandal that's out there. But what is really sad when you look at this situation is it's not just the French, it's the British. There was a British talk show this week or last week where this woman was attacking this gentleman who was a guest, saying, I don't understand this Burkina Faso issue. These Africans should be grateful. Colonialism was good. It gave them education, sanitation, and we lift them up out of. So this is what I mean by propaganda and the way the 1700s essentially rewrote human history. Before the 1700s, the concept of being white was not something that was a prime. The white Western hegemony did not exist. It was intellectualism. Even Plato himself writes about getting many of his works from Africa, going on pilgrimages to Egypt and other places where he got a lot of his information. You look at the Vitruvian map and the Orontes Phineas map, they're two completely different maps.
Yeah.
Vitruvian maps show that Africa is very tiny. Orontes Phineas shows a massive amount of lands that we didn't even know existed, including Antarctica, before Antarctica became frozen.
Yes. So, dear viewers, you have heard that this trip to Moscow was more than meets the eye. It served so many purposes. And as Traore himself said, Captain Traore said he learned a lot of lessons. He walked through the archives. He saw the photos of Russian soldiers. He saw the photos of Africans at World War II, their contribution, how they were used in the front line as cannon fodder. That was said not just by Traore, but it was said by President Putin as well. So we saw what happened, and we are not trying to be incendiary in any way. These are history. These are things that we can read, we can study. And so we are very happy that this happened, that our president, our leader was respected. RESPCT, Aretha Franklin told us, respect is paramount to every dealing you have, every relationship you can have with anybody. And so, as Grace has told us, this was beyond pomp and circumstance. There were so many nuances that we have recounted in the main part of our discussion. And so, before we said goodbye to you, we are asking that you remember to subscribe on our channel. This will help us further our agenda, the agenda of Africa's empowerment, the agenda of knowing what is Africa doing, what are Africans doing, what are our leaders doing. And of course, the poster boy, the poster child here, or the poster man here, or the poster president here is Ibrahim Traore. Support Traore. Let's support him. Let's rally around him. Let's make sure that these people who are after him should know that it is not business as usual. They are not going to go and do the things they have done to Lumumba, to Patrick Lumumba, to Gaddafi, the things that they have done to our leaders, many of them that I may not count now. That will be a different program. Please do share widely our video, give us a thumbs up, and definitely subscribe, and urge patriotic Africans to subscribe. Bye-bye. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.